Welcome back, Red Spotters, to the show here on the Red Spotlight Entertainment Podcast. I'm your host, Alexis J. Soto, and I'm joined today by my very good friend and fellow agent, Mr. David Francisco. How are you doing with the world as it is right now?
Well, I'm doing good. The world
is not. It's not doing good. We'll have a whole different podcast talking about that. So there'll be none of that here. We want to have it good vibes for the most part. And this is actually, and you might have noticed in recent weeks with recent episodes, we're starting off a litany of different kinds of special segments or series with the Red Spotlight. So, for example, we have a weekly Avatar: The Last Airbender recap. We also have a weekly series talking about some of our earlier inspirational films that paved our way for our love of movies overall. And this is no exception with a different kind of weekly recap. This is the Beyond the Shield, as has been talked about for years on end now. And as the title suggests, we're doing just that. We're going to be recapping the new and last season of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And as I've always said, airing on ABC Wednesdays at 9. I think it's 9, or it could be 10. I'm not sure, but it's one of those. Either way, I watch it on Hulu, so it doesn't much matter. To give people a little bit of a refresher as to why we are big fans of this series, and I feel, and we'll be in agreement, because we usually are when it comes to this series, episode 1 of season 7 is kind of like the go-to example as to why we love this show. So, I mean, it ain't gonna be that out of place to talk about it. And of course, its place in Marvel television, and curiously enough, the only thing with Marvel happening for a long time. And later on in the series, I'm sorry, I misspoke there. So this will be a 13-part installment because there are 13 episodes for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this season. And later on in this episode, we'll be discussing other kind of shows that, we like to discuss. Not as a weekly thing, but just for today. David has some thoughts on the Clone Wars series finale, which I also wanted to mention. I can't believe it hasn't been talked about beforehand, but it's not as if we didn't cover it. Like, it wasn't ignored. Like, we covered all of the Clone Wars episodes as they aired on the Fantasy Fair podcast, which is our sister podcast on the same network. So if you are interested in hearing more in-depth conversations with myself, Kyle Lira, and Alexis Moreno, you can go check out the Fantasy Fair podcast. And there's a lot of content over there on that, but I hadn't given David the chance to talk about the Clone Wars finale, so this will be his chance to have his say. And then also, I'll have my say in a non-spoiler fashion, considering David hasn't finished the season yet, but as far as the timeless child is concerned with Doctor Who. That's going to be fun. So, all that and more here on Red Spotlight number 229, Beyond the Shield. David, let's get into this real quick with this series. This is a remarkable thing, and something that this is what I do, what I like to do anyway. When it comes to shows like Who or Clone Wars or S.H.I.E.L.D. is I really do like to see other people's reactions to these episodes. So I'm a big fan of like YouTube reaction channels where they just react to the episodes as we did. And it just, I don't know. To me, I feel like it gives me a better appreciation for the series. And one of the things that I've really noticed, especially with the reactions to the Clone Wars' final episodes, was a lot of people kind of basically feeling how I felt, which was like being so overcome with emotion. It's like, wow, like we're here. And it means a lot to those of us who had been on that long road. And I think it was on one of the episodes on Fantasy Fair where we talked about Old Friends Not Forgotten, the first part of the Siege of Mandalore. And I talked about how I needed to like get myself mentally prepared for this because it's not only was it something we never expected to get, but it was the conclusion to what started a long time ago. No pun intended. No pun intended there. That wasn't intended. It always comes out by accident, but here it is. Yeah, in a galaxy far, far away. But yeah, it means a lot to see people kind of have a reverence for something like that as I did. You know, because I so rarely get to see that here with my friends who kind of, you know, love to destroy the things that I love for cheap laughs. Go check out Peter Martinez on our regular podcast for you. But the same thing with S.H.I.E.L.D. is I've noticed a lot of reaction channels just like, you know, paying, you know, homage to it. Because, and I just recently watched one last night where it was like, S.H.I.E.L.D. was the first show that I reacted to on my channel, and it means a lot to me. So it's a very familial, small fan base. We acknowledge it's a very small fan base, but it has been, to me, just a special fandom to have been a part of for all of these years, because I don't recall ever like having so much brain power being like consumed with, all right, how can we mobilize on social media, and how what can we do our small little part in making sure that this little engine that comes back year after year for a renewal. Like part of the hilarity with at least with Red Spotlight is that I would always insert like the the air date of every S.H.I.E.L.D. episode, partly because it kind of was, I don't know, and remind me, because I've lost count, how many times did it almost get killed off? Like pretty
much every single season. I think you just said you're like, oh, it's gonna get canceled. It's probably gonna get canceled.
Every single season. I think it was almost like 3 years in a row. It happened because like we got what happened was season 4 was happening, and it didn't look good. Then we got season 5, and that looked worse. Like really bad. And then at the last, like I remember when the season 6 renewal happened, I was at work, and it was like the biggest sigh of relief ever, because that was the single last show to have had made a decision on by the network about whether or not to keep it or to kill it off. That's how close it came. And then again with season 6, like, okay, they got 13 more episodes. Clearly that's it. That's going to be the end of it. Then we get a weird out of nowhere announcement, Thanksgiving weekend, one year, I think it was 2018, where, oh yeah, by the way, we have another season. It's like,
yeah, no, it's always crazy times with that show, and it is very surprising every single time that it gets renewed, and especially that last season where it just, you know, I think it was the sixth season hadn't come out yet, right? Or was it like in the middle of it? I don't remember.
It wasn't even released.
Yeah, so it was insane. Like that part was a part like that really made me feel like, oh my gosh, this show is loved by the network, and like probably by a lot more fans. Like that's the moment that really made me like so happy for a show.
Yeah, and there are a lot of reasons to suspect about there was just no chance for a 8th or 9th season. Let's pump the brakes on that real quick. Jed Whedon and Marissa Tancharoen, who I will be name dropping a lot in this series. They're the showrunners of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They were under the impression that 6 was going to be the last season. And they were literally in the middle of filming season 6 when ABC like came up and like, hey, do you want like 13 more episodes for season 7? And they're like, sure. But can we like stop there, because I don't know what else we can do after season 7. Yeah. So I mean, as well as we do know that the ratings probably would not have sustained an 8th series, because I don't know if people are aware of this, but when a TV series gets to 8 seasons, they have to renegotiate contracts. That's much more expensive. And then, of course, with Kevin Feige raping Marvel Entertainment and killing it off, basically, that wasn't even an option. So there were so many reasons why that was never going to happen. And I'm glad, because I think if the writers feel like there's nowhere to go after 7, don't. Yeah. Just don't. We've seen it happen so many times where shows just go on end and they just lose what made them special in the first place in a variety of different ways. So I'm glad that they were the ones that made the conscious choice, like, okay, but maybe this is one too many renewals at this point. We have a story that we can finish it off and make it a great, like, I don't know, farewell tour for the fans and everything as they would want. But we've really got nowhere else to go after this, because, like, you know, with season 7, part of the way there was a great article in Variety this weekend how Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Was, one of the best series, or has been one of the most interesting series to see because of how they reinvent their premise every single year. The one thing with time travel is like, well, they've already gone in the future, so we kind of have no choice but to go in the past, to kind of differentiate it from that previous experience. And then this is like kind of legit time travel this time, not so much like accidental, like professorial mission into the future as it was last time. So, yeah, I as much as I love these characters, and as much as I do believe it's going to be a hard thing to like say goodbye to them, at the end of the day, I am always just so pleased with a finale that's just done well, if not great. And sometimes we don't get the best of finales when it comes to like, beloved serials on television or in movies, shall we say. It hasn't been the best couple of years for finales. I mean, there's been one.
I would say two.
Endgame. What was the? Well, yeah, that was the one I was talking about. What was the other one you were talking about?
Clone Wars.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. I was like, okay.
Actually, for me, it's 3. The Good Place was an amazing finale.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to watch.
I heard a lot about. I need to get on that. I heard it's a really good show, and that's also a show that ended on its own terms, like a 4-season comedy / dramedy series on NBC. Once upon a time that would be considered a failure. Like, what? They got 4 seasons, but no, I mean, NBC wanted them to come back year in, year after year, but it was like, I believe it was the creative's decision to like, you know what? We really want to wrap it up, and I think 4 it's going to be a great season, and from what you tell me, it's really great.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's one of my favorite shows because of that ending. Like, everything that the characters went through was so important, and I think it had to end in the 4th season because the topic is so big, dealing with morality, living a good life and just being a good person, like how to be a good person basically, and giving people chances to change. It's an amazing show.
I mean, yes, and I'm also reminded, having rewatched this recently, the finale of Avatar: The Last Airbender. That whole last season, but damn, that finale! It's it does remind us of the level of weight we give finales. Like, if it manages to wrap things up great, then, like, it makes a lot of things. But unfortunately, it does have the other effect where if you really fuck it up, it can not just ruin that episode, but it can ruin a lot of what the other series was. Like, this is a sad thing. When I watched the Game of Thrones season or series finale, I wasn't as enraged. And that may have been because at least it was better than the week before, because the penultimate episode was just devastating. It wasn't even that it made me upset. It just made me so sad.
Yeah.
Like, what happened? Like, literally, what did this?
It's just, it really is... It really is sad because you can just tell that the writers like gave up, you know?
Yeah.
Like you can see it in the show, and it really is sad. While others, other shows that I've seen the finales for.
By the way, real quick, because they wanted to get to a project that's now been canceled, by the way.
Yeah. Because either they were fired or because they quit. I don't know, but they literally gave up a good job for something else. It was stupid. But from other finales that I've seen, like another recent one is the Arrow finale. It didn't feel like it did with The Last Airbender or Good Place, where it was just like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly where it needed to end.
Right.
With Arrow, and Supernatural was supposed to have its finale, but because of COVID, I think they stopped production or something. I don't know what happened.
I think they're gonna. I would assume they're gonna go back and film it when this whole thing's over. I think that's so. Like a 14 season long series, right? Like it's been 15? On. Oh fuck.
Yeah, damn. And like with those shows, like, I mean, well, for Arrow specifically,
the CW does not play when they like you. They really, really like you. Like, oh holy God, shit.
Yes. Yeah. Well, specifically with Arrow, the finale. I went in it going like, oh yeah, it's time for that show to end.
And by the way, am I to understand that the reason why it ended was because Robbie and Mel had enough?
I think so. It's hard to tell with these kind of things,
right?
Because I know with Supernatural, it is ending because the actors are done with it. Yeah, the writer themselves. I don't know. I think one of the actors themselves said that. What the writer said, they asked the writers, like, how long are you going to keep this going? It's like, we'll keep it going as long as the actors want to keep doing it. And so they went for 15 seasons.
Wow.
Yeah, it was insane. And I think maybe for Arrow, I think he was done. He was actually done since the 6th season. But I think contract stuff that he went for 8th. So, yeah, but like I said, I was trying to say, for a lot of finales, you just kind of get this like, okay, it's done, that's it. But for many other shows that I've seen, like Last Airbender, The Good Place, it's really nice to like have the feeling of completion,
right.
completeness. It's awesome.
Yeah, and even thinking to some other finales that I think were well done in their own right, even though they weren't as grand on a massive scale. I think back to I want to say it was 2013, 14, 15. The official series finale to Futurama. I really like Futurama. I've always loved that show. I love those characters. And when it was originally canceled, the last episode left so much to be desired from. Where it was, it ended off with the potential cliffhanger of the romance between Leela and Fry. Whereas in the official series finale, knowing that it was going to be the last episode, it was a wonderful ode to them, and we got to see basically them live to old age together as a couple. And then of course, how time travel works, and we can hit the reset button and do it one more time. But yeah. Or even Parks and Recreation. I love that finale so much. So yeah, finales are important.
Yeah. I also do like finales where it kind of ends. It's not like a complete end, but you can tell like there's still an adventure going on. Yeah, I was gonna say, another finale that recently happened for me, it was The Magicians. It's a sci-fi show. That one, it ended like I was explaining, like it kind of ended with there's a new adventure coming. We just won't get to see it, and I was fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, not every show has to end with killing everybody off and like the whole thing like coming apart. Like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, like The Last Airbender ended. I mean, the main story was resolved, but a lot of those characters' lives will not be seen. So there's that. I also think one of my favorite finales in recent memory, even though it's not like an official like finale to a show, it was basically a finale to a season, which was Doctor Who Twice Upon a Time. It was the last episode with Peter Capaldi, right before he transformed into Jodie Whittaker. And why I love that, like, the 3-part combination of like World Enough in Time, The Doctor Falls, and Twice Upon a Time, it was to me, it was an amazing finale to not only Peter Capaldi's era, to Stephen Moffat's era, but then also it really felt like a nice bookend to what had been at that point 10 years of brand new Doctor Who material. Or at least over 10 years, but 10 seasons of Doctor Who material. The Doctor Falls in the last moments where we see flashes of all of the new Who companions, and also him quoting other like doctors like Tennant and Smith and Tom Baker. So it being the last episode for one of the veteran directors, also Murray Gold, who scored literally all of the previous 10 seasons. So it was as well done of a finale as I would have expected. And I think what I loved so much about Capaldi's run of Doctor Who was his stories were never on the scale and scope of like Tennant or maybe even Smith. But I always appreciated that and maybe even preferred it, because I always seemed to think that Capaldi was given a lot more time to really absorb and react as an actor in like these softer, more subtle moments, character moments, progression. So like I always kind of preferred Capaldi's run as the Doctor, because not to of course bemoan Smith and Tennant, who I always adore. I love their runs and they're special in their own right. But Capaldi's is always what I preferred, because to me because you kind of pulled back on the scale, you kind of got more in character. So I consider Twice Upon a Time to be a finale to a lot of things, but bring it back. Yeah, go ahead.
It really is just a great finale for Capaldi and Moffat. You know, I rewatched that scene when he regenerates like over and over.
Yes,
just
oh my God,
everything he says, it's so beautiful. And like you can, the first time watching it, I almost got teary-eyed, because you can tell that it's them, both Moffat and Capaldi, just saying goodbye to the character, to the franchise, and to the audience. God,
I cry every single time to it. I cry every single time, and I'll tell you, I'm never gonna forget watching that for the first time. It will be one of my most like fondly remembered experiences of watching television, because that final monologue that Capaldi gives, not only does it encapsulate everything what I think the Doctor to be, or what the Doctor stands for, but it kind of also just like is so inspirational with the music and of course the words, because that's how you want to live your life. You're reminded why Doctor Who exists is because he is just a guy trying to be kind and decent and good. And maybe you can do that too. We can do that too. Yeah. So I've always just, and I think to me, like, Capaldi has been the best messenger, I think, or maybe not the best actor for that message. Because he delivers it with such conviction. I'll never forget the Zygon inversion. Oh my God, that amazing like speech that you just wish were like, I don't know, broadcast on television, on the news, so people would like listen to that. I wish people would, because I remember earlier in 2020, by the way, you can tell it's been a long year when we have to go back to the beginning of 2020 when there was the threat of nuclear war. Hasn't it been a year? Oh, I remember when all of that was happening with Iran, I looked up that clip of the Zygon inversion, and I was like just swept away with it. And it comes from a place of such sadness. We can go on forever about all these things, clearly.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And we will at some point. But getting it back to S.H.I.E.L.D. It's been also, shall we say, a little bit contentious over the years with how Marvel has treated Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's hilarious to me that, you know, with this series coming to a close with this last season, I was reading an article, I think an NBC of all places, praising the series for its longevity and for its accomplishments, and saying how many times Marvel has just shafted this show and acted as if it doesn't exist. Oh, the irony of it being the only Marvel thing that is ready to be shown to the public for practically the rest of the year. And we have a real chance where Black Widow doesn't even come out this year. No Marvel movie comes out this year. And from what I understand, The Falcon and Winter Soldier ain't nowhere near to be done. So I love how part of my love is how this series is always just kind of the only ones left standing through it all, right? This was the first show on Marvel Entertainment. It will be the last show on Marvel Entertainment because so many other shows formed around it and collapsed around it. Inhumans, so the Marvel Defender Netflix shows, Cloak and Dagger, and what was it called? Not New Mutants. It was
Runaways.
Runaways. Yes, there's so many of them.
Oh, yeah.
The names kind of all blend in, but even critically acclaimed shows like Legion on FX, who weren't necessarily MCU, but were under that entertainment umbrella. It's just so curious to me how every single year, this was the show that was like literally on the edge of cancellation. And it ended up being not only the first, but the last show. Marvel, even Ghost Rider, which I'm still pissed about, was going to go into production. And of course, they pulled the plug literally the day before they even began filming. So, yeah. And of course, you know, with what I just mentioned, with no other Marvel properties, you know, coming out at all, this is all they got. It's just so wonderful to see a little bit of recompense for all those years of mockery, I think you should say. Because a lot of people, I think, even to this day, just dismiss the series based off that first season and based off the first half of that first season. And we talk about the history of the show. Look, I will not argue with the ratings. They're not necessarily worth renewing the series in any way. But, I mean, I don't care, first and foremost, because the show kind of, fuck it. I mean, like, the show has so vastly improved from the early days. And we've said this, I think, year and year after year, David. But, like, it's just crazy to me because, like, and a little bit aggravating because, like, if the show were as good as it is now, and when it debuted, forget it. Like, that would have all the ratings. It would get a lot of the attention, but didn't happen. And many people don't remember, I should say, that it wasn't necessarily Jed and Marissa's fault, because they were told by Kevin Feige, of all people, who not only acts as if this doesn't exist, takes glee in destroying everything this show built. But he told them originally, hey, so Winter Soldier's happening and Hydra's there and you can't reveal that. So figure out what your show is before the real show starts, which is like half the season. And it's like, fuck.
Yeah. I mean, it could have gone better to kind of establish what this show's supposed to be, but I mean, I still love that twist. I mean, it's still awesome, but you know, but I do remember like that first part being kind of rough to watch.
It was because you didn't necessarily get a sense of what the show was, or where this was going, or why I needed to watch it. But at some point, we did get that, and a lot of people like to say that this is a show about spies, spy agency. But like it, to my mind, it has so gone away with that. I feel seasons ago, it really is what a lot of people see in Star Wars or in Marvel. It is a series about family.
Yeah.
And, you could say that these characters began as spies, but they really have come full circle and become full-fledged heroes. So, yeah, that's kind of like where I go on to it with the series. Like, I view these characters on this show as an extension of my own family. Because in TV shows, you get the space to get to know them in a more intimate fashion than film. Film, you can go back to that same film and you can revisit and you can maybe pick up a couple new nuances to a performance and to a character. But with a TV show, and one that runs for, let's say, 7 years, you get attached to them. And, yeah.
Oh, go ahead, you can finish.
No, one of the weirdest things I will say about all this, having recently experienced the finale of the Clone Wars, was, 2013, the Clone Wars was canceled. And I was, like, at that point, that was, like, my show. And was kind of in despair. That was not a fun thing to go through. It felt like something was ripped away from my heart, was how much that hurt. Because at that point, I'd watched it, like, since it began. And then along came S.H.I.E.L.D. And then I latched onto something else that kind of gave me the feeling of what Clone Wars did in a different way, obviously. But, there are similarities. They are in-universe shows. They do expand on other themes that you could see in the films. But they also, at some points, detach themselves from that larger universe and focus on their original characters and are better for it. There are a lot of, I think, really interesting similarities between those two series. And who would have thought that at the end of all of that, at the last year where S.H.I.E.L.D. would have its 7th season, here comes the Clone Wars back from the dead, literally, to also have its 7th season.
The dead speak.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. So it's been something of a miracle. Even in my wildest dreams, I couldn't have imagined it being as perfect as it is right now with these wonderful shows of mine. So
yeah, no, what you said about S.H.I.E.L.D. being like your extended family, you're definitely not alone on that. If you remember when I went to D23, I saw the first episode of this season over there. And, everyone, when the actor Coulson came out on stage, everyone was cheering. And then when we saw the episode with Coulson being brought back, again, they were all cheering. And then, we saw the episode, we all cheered again. It's just, we all loved it. We all loved the experience together. And then, if you remember, I said that, some people got up, asked some questions, and there was this one this one lady, she went up there and she said that she saw the first ever episode of the show at Comic-Con. And then she was there for the first episode of the final season, and I think she nearly got teary-eyed. And then the actor, Coulson,
Clark Gregg, he
hugged
her, right?
he got off stage and hugged her and everything. Nearly died going down, but he hugged her, and it was a great thing. And I do love these characters too. We all love Coulson. That what was it? Hashtag Coulson lives.
Which again, another similarity to Ahsoka lives.
Yes.
From the Clone Wars.
Oh my god. And then when you see these characters, you love the growth Daisy has gone through, and we love the relationship building with Fitz and Simmons. I mean, to me, that's what I'm there for sure.
Right,
it's Fitz and Simmons to be together for what? And then, so yeah, you're definitely not alone on that feeling.
Yeah,
awesome.
I was thinking to myself in the last few days, wait, didn't David see this already months ago?
Yeah.
He did see this. You saw this with an audience.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. That, not just any audience, of course, a ravenous crowd of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans, of course, with Clark Gregg and I believe, what's his name? Jeff Ward, who plays Deke, was also there, and maybe also was Jed Whedon there and Marissa Tancharoen, or who was there?
I think so. Yeah, I know the showrunners were there.
Okay,
and then who? I think the producer,
Jeff Bell, probably, or Jeff Loeb. Which one of those?
Jeff Loeb.
Okay,
I think so.
Yeah, and this is also Jeff Loeb's curtain call, and I've always felt bad for him because I think he gets too much crap, because Jeff Loeb was the head of Marvel Entertainment. He's since resigned because, of course, that's been dissolved and whatever was left was been absorbed by Kevin Feige's Marvel Studios. Mm-hmm. But it was just an unfortunate hand because he had to report to Ike Perlmutter, which is the worst. I mean, in general, but if you want money, forget it. Forget it. You're not going to get it. You're just not. And that was a recurring issue with a lot of the shows. And I think he did the best he could, but they just didn't give him any money to work with at all with any of these shows. And it was even worse because he got most of the blame for that. Not Ike Perlmutter, who was, by the way, one of the most involved and invasive executives that I am aware of. But why Disney would allow that to happen for years on end when this was their brand. This was part of, the Marvel, series and everything. And why they let Ike Perlmutter, call the shots with, his division of TV shows and not just give it to Feige when they were just going to do it anyway was... What? Why? Yeah. Even, Feige had to, wrestle to get out of Ike Perlmutter's, grip. Remember with the whole Civil War situation? Civil War was happening, and Ike Perlmutter didn't want Black Panther involved because black people don't go to movies. No, and that was a real reason. I think he didn't want Black Panther to happen because he argued that it just wouldn't make any money. He also was Captain Marvel shouldn't happen because that's not going to make any money. He didn't want to give any money to have Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War. Oh, God. That guy has to go. Yeah. So it was and thankfully he's not making any more creative decisions, but that guy shouldn't have been in charge in the first place. I'll tell you that. So I think for however good shows like S.H.I.E.L.D. or Daredevil are, I mean, that's a miracle considering who was literally leading the ship in that regard. So to Jeff Loeb. But back on the characters. I think what you also do see as why the fandom is so alive is that the actors themselves not only say this, but you see it on camera, not just in the episodes, but in any kind of behind the scenes footage or any interviews. For example, this past week, the whole cast did a Zoom call with Eric Goldman of Screen Junkies. It was an ABC thing to commemorate the last season and everything. They had everybody on a massive Zoom call. I listened to I think half of it, and it was, and in any instance, like you can tell how much these actors not only like care for one another, but how much this experience has like made them into a real life family. Mm-hmm. And they say that so often. I remember when, I think this was like last July, maybe August. I was seeing a whole bunch of like, Twitter posts, Instagram posts about, filming the last episode and how like emotional everybody was. There's this one I remember of Natalia Cordova, who plays Yo-Yo, driving to the set for the last time and then filming herself just like with tears in her eyes. So it was like, fuck. You do get that familial sense from the start, and I don't know, maybe it is that way for every TV show, but it just felt much more special with this one, considering that the premise of these characters is they do become this like, makeshift family as they progress through the series. So
yeah, that's awesome.
With the New Deal, this first episode of S.H.I.E.L.D., I mentioned before, it is kind of everything we like in this show. And boy, must it have been something to have watched this in an audience. So the main premise of the series is the team realizes that they're in the past, they're in 1930. The Chronicoms from the previous season are going out of their way to undo the events that created S.H.I.E.L.D. in the first place. And so you have a lot of interesting elements going on in this episode that, speak to the history of pre-S.H.I.E.L.D. You have Patton Oswalt back as a descendant of Koenig, who was a recurring agent on the series. You also have the father of Gideon Malik, who is the future head of Hydra, another villain that we did see in the series. And you also have Franklin Delano Roosevelt, President Roosevelt, who, if not for him, the agency wouldn't have been created. Because as Coulson reminds us, is that he created the SSR, which then led to the creation of S.H.I.E.L.D. So in many ways, like he could be seen as the first like director of S.H.I.E.L.D. in a way, or at least the forefather of it. So a lot of interesting elements at play that just speak to how the show has come full circle and how we're going to get a lot of story threads like those that harken back to the legacy of this series. I want to just jump straight into this part that kind of like made me almost scream, which was many parts. But this is immediately after they shut down Coulson, after he goes haywire. And Simmons explains what the objective is. And then she reveals behind like the covered part of the Zephyr 1, she reveals what's underneath it. And oh my god. Not only does it like that new laboratory and that whole new space that was in Zephyr 1 that they created, because in story, clearly what happened is in the season 6 finale, when Enoch rescued Fitz and Simmons, clearly it has been years since that, at least for Simmons. A long time since that. So we're definitely dealing with elements of lost time. But at the same time, they created this whole new space for Zephyr, which is perfect because it harkens back, and the design, I feel, is very similar to the bus, which was the predominant set for season 1 of the series. Mm-hmm. And that space where you had Fitz and Simmons' lab, which was a commonplace, cooler place to go visit. Like if you think about it, like the holotable is there. You have the wall panels on each side. There's even, I think, a direct homage to it where you have like the ammunition on the wall, which was, I think, directly from how it was placed in the first season of S.H.I.E.L.D. So like, and you just remember, you remind yourself, okay, so we're not going to have a base. Like Zephyr is our base for this season, as it was in the first season. So I know.
I didn't even know that. Oh,
I didn't
God.
catch it the first time, and when I watched it again, I was like, oh, okay, that's what you're doing with that. And I love it. Of course
that's great.
Do. Because what we clearly know is that they're going to be time hopping throughout different eras, and they can only do that while on the Zephyr, so that makes the most sense. And it also just like, well, yeah, it reminds me, was that first floor of the plane like really nothing this whole time? Oh yeah, like it was just like a containment module and a couple of chairs, but that was it. It was just basically used for like weapons storage or something. It was never really like used as anything else. And they needed a bigger lab on that plane anyway, because they used, I think, the other lab for Coulson's room where they had him in the chamber before they turned him on. So yeah, that was one of the things that I like latched onto immediately, and I'm like, oh, I love it so much. And God, you got to give it up for the score. I love the music. I've always loved S.H.I.E.L.D's music, and how it builds up to these wonderful moments. So yeah, it definitely gave it a sense of, oh, here we go again. Talk about some of your favorite moments. First of all, I think we can agree, very good episode. Hilarious, classic S.H.I.E.L.D. Classic series.
I love the setting of the 1930s feeling and all that. Like when you first see the city and all that, I was like, oh, this still looks great. Awesome. No, but actually, honestly, my favorite thing though is Coulson and Max dynamic through the whole thing. I really love that they were very much communicating with each other about the whole situation. Like how he really wanted to respect his wishes, but he was also glad that he's back. And I love that Coulson just kind of was like, you're the director now. Like whatever you say, we go. And throughout the episode, you kind of see Coulson's reaction to his new situation, and Max kind of still iffy about it, I guess. Which it's fair because he has bad situation with the robots and all that.
A lot of bad robot situations, let's face it.
Yeah. So yeah, I really like their dynamic.
We can stick with that real quick because there's a lot to say about that. You're so right about that dynamic and it being so crucial to having it be in this episode because of Max's predisposition to robots. Even before the whole LMD thing happened, like he was like, no, this is not a good idea. And of course, you can see that he's conflicted because he can see, well, he knows it's a much more advanced LMD. It's basically Chronocom hardware, as they said. But he also can see that what was in Coulson is also in him, in this Coulson version of LMD. And it was important for him to have that one-on-one, and to kind of get him like straightened out, just to like feel him out, basically, to see what his deal was. And that's going to be also an interesting thing to see overall, is what a big part of what this episode I think was is Coulson. Coulson's back, and in one episode you kind of like remember, oh, that's right, we haven't seen you in a while. Like we've seen Clark Gregg. Yeah. And we've seen Sarge. But that was a whole different vibe. You just all of a sudden remind yourself that Coulson wasn't really in season 6, like at all. Yeah. And then with this like this wonderful performance by Clark Gregg, you get to see it where it's like, I've missed you so much. Damn it, Coulson, I've missed you so much. And it adds of course another different layer. And I love how they give these actors different like versions of the characters to play. You know how we were talking about in Endgame, how we have now we had different Nebulas, and now we have different Gamoras. Of course, this series is no stranger to like different versions of characters, but in this sense, we do have an LMD Coulson who knows he's not Coulson, but is basically Coulson. Yeah, and it's gonna be, and I love how it's not just like treated as him like, okay, I guess this is me now. Like, no, there's an internal struggle there because he was very clear, under no circumstances did he want to be brought back to life. And that does things to you. So it's going to be fascinating to see what the arc of that character is for this last season, where he ends up. And he's very clear about it to Mac is, I'll help with this mission. I'll see it through to the end. But at the end of this, I need to reevaluate if I want to be a thing or not. You know, like that's so. And we see him in typical Coulson fashion talk about it in many instances. Like, do I breathe? Do I have gears?
Do I eat?
Right. Do I drink?
No, do I drink?
Yeah. And one of those classic hilarity moment with S.H.I.E.L.D. is they have a whole bunch of guns pointed at them in the underground like bootleg club. And Coulson was like, yeah, I'm dead. And he basically like goes up to the gun, like, doesn't matter if he shoots him because he's not going to die because he's a robot and everything. And then you cut to Mac like, well, hell, I'm not. It was a wonderful classic moment there. Where, Coulson, I think, was just such an amazing part about why this episode just felt like an old episode of S.H.I.E.L.D., if you think about it, even though like it is a new episode. But in other moments with Coulson that I can recall, when they first turned him on, and he's basically, as he says, living 2 years and 6 seconds, which, whoa. That's
that was actually that was a cool scene.
Yeah, it was. It was a little hard to watch because, like, oh no, Coulson. Like, no,
especially because, like, you remember, like, oh god, he did this thing. It's like he knows he did these things, or like he's trying to piece it together, and oh man, it's crazy. No,
it's great. But then there are other moments that stick out to my mind. Is I think maybe my favorite scene in this episode was they're at the party where Governor Roosevelt then was going to give the speech and he's campaigning. And Daisy goes off to talk to Coulson. And you can also just tell, like, she's of two minds about this. She's really trying to, like, keep herself from exploding with emotions. She's really keeping herself at just a little bit of a distance to where, because she does feel bad that she immediately like pushed the button and brought him back without any kind of discussion. But at the same time, she only just recently accepted that he was gone, and then to have him back not only messes with you, maybe even more than Sarge did, which that was enough to be messed with. Let's be clear about that. To have like him wearing Coulson's face, but you could just these subtle touches in her like body language, where she's like, she really just wants to like hug him and tell him everything that he's missed, but she also just wants to, keep herself in check and not lose herself in that way, because when it comes to Coulson, it is very, very special to her. And that little exchange that they have about that whole thing, and it really just like, it is Coulson. It's not, but it is. And it feels everything like him.
Oh, yeah.
You forget, I think, at times, like, oh, wait, he's an LMD. Because he just, like, naturally slips back into it. So, yeah. And I love how there's no pretense, at least not yet anyway, that at some point he's going to go bad because all robots go bad. Because, like, Chronicom Hardware, Enoch made him, so it's like there's no chance of that happening. So I'm glad we're not going to go through that, it seems. Another moment that I felt was weirdly emotional. Weirdly, because like you just wouldn't expect it to be. But it is to me because I really love FDR. And I do think he was the best president we've had. We're top two. And it's just seeing that, and of course, like Coulson just geeking out about being in his presence would be exactly how I would be reacting if I were in his presence, and like to shake his hand and the music swelling up, and with like FDR, like I know like in a lot of like instances that could come off as like cheesy and like altruistic and like overly pompous and stuff like that. But given the time that we're living in, and given the history that that individual had with the creation of S.H.I.E.L.D. In that universe, it felt like a momentous occasion.
Yeah.
It really did. Yeah. And you can kind of like get, I don't know if Coulson can cry. Can he cry? I don't know. Maybe that's a different question for another episode. So yeah, Clark Gregg's great. Yeah. I don't know what it is that after such a long time, I think over 10 years now, he's been playing this character. And he's still, I think, cranking out some of my favorite Coulson moments ever. Which, like, talk about what a lucky thing for an actor to play a character that long. Mm-hmm. Like, you start off in a couple of movies, you get killed off, you get brought back for, like, this long-standing TV series. He even went back to one of the movies. I hope in some way they never stop with him. Not that I want Coulson to be around forever and ever, but I would hope that, you know, some of the people that are on Kevin Feige's team look at the stuff that's being held with such reverence in S.H.I.E.L.D. They appreciate that, and they can build off of that if they choose to. But, you know, not getting my hopes up. So, that's with Coulson. Let's go back to you about other moments that you wanted to talk about.
What else happened? Patton Oswalt coming back. He was, as always, hilarious in this episode. He was pretty cool. And I just found it funny, though, that it's like his descendant, or like his grandsons look exactly like him. Like, it's just a weird thing. It's so funny. And then what else? It was basically just kind of that twist in the end where they try to save that bartender's life. I forgot his name already. Malik's.
Yeah, it was Malik's father.
Yeah, Malik's father.
Which, if you remember, this was season 3. The episode was called Paradise Lost, and this was the episode where Hive reveals to Malik's daughter that Malik, like his father before him, cheated in the ritual ceremony thing of the stone to determine who gets to be sent over through the monolith to Mavith. And if you remember in that episode, when they flash back to young Malik with his brother, who he later sacrificed, their father had just recently died. The character that we're seeing in this episode as a young guy, who also, again, it's not a good, I think, longevity to be a Hydra family, because if we just look at the Malik bloodline, so Malik's grandfather apparently jumped out of a window or died. Then Malik's father died, and then Malik died, and then his daughter was killed by an alien. So it was like, not a good thing.
Yeah,
to be in Hydra. I don't think it really works out in the end at all. But yeah, that's what we're dealing with here. So, and it's an interesting take because it's not what you immediately go to when you realize it's like, well, yeah, Hydra does get involved with this. And what you have to recall is, because of the mythology that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. introduced, the Hydra of Red Skull, the Nazis, and what's his name? Dr. Zola, that hasn't come into existence yet. That Hydra forms when the SSR, I think, is transformed into S.H.I.E.L.D. And then, of course, we see in the movies with, I believe, Winter Soldier and Endgame, how Hydra had a secret base underneath the S.H.I.E.L.D. base. But this Hydra with Malik has been around for thousands of years. It is a cult entirely devoted to Hive. And at some point, and maybe we'll find out more along the lines of what exactly how they come into contact with the actual Hydra or with the new Hydra. I mean, they're all one Hydra, but like one came before the other, and then they kind of joined, and then the whole S.H.I.E.L.D. thing and everything. But perhaps what we're going to find out is that the origins of the Hydra that will be Red Skull's Hydra are going to happen because of Malik's Hydra, and yada, 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 whatever. And of course, it makes sense for the Chronicoms to kill them. And it's still not exactly clear to me what the Chronicoms are going to do or how it is they're going to achieve that.
I think they were just going to kill him, weren't they?
Well, they were not with him. I mean the grand plan.
Oh, okay.
The master plan is still not clear to me about how they're going to execute what they want to do. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. There have been some previews. I guess light spoilers for the episode that's going to be airing this week. There have been some previews where some ships come out of hyperspace and they blast a Triskelion for episode 2. Whoa. So who knows? This is gonna be a crazy season. I'll just tell you that. But I'm not clear about how it is. But it is of course a classic S.H.I.E.L.D. twist where, like, in order to save themselves, they have to save their mortal enemy. So, yeah. I'll be go ahead.
I was gonna say I just also enjoyed everything about the episode. You know, Coulson's back, the team is back, the action is still great. Like I said, I love the production design of the 1930s aesthetic, and yeah.
No, I agree with you. The costumes were great. I'm sure it was fun for the cast to be in them. But I also really just love the small little character beats that we get for a lot of other characters. So, other things that I've noticed. I love how much Deke has come into his own as an agent. And I love that for the first time, it just seems like the rest of the team are like finally beginning to like appreciate him for a change. Like, it's been 2 fucking years of like nothing but abuse for Deke. And he finally, he proved his worth in the finale of last year. But he's really just coming to his own as an agent. Like, he's like on top of everything. Like, I would think that he would be like, I guess, ill-prepared to be in the 1930s, considering he was looking at a dystopian future. But since he has done this before, where he's kind of gone to the past, like I would assume he would be of an expert on this topic. So, yeah, anything with Deke is, I love that character. Well, I love them all. So like, you can't really like complain too much. I'm sorry, David. Go ahead.
No, sorry. I just also like that bit of character moment with him and I always get them confused. Is it Simmons in the ship or Fitz?
Which one? With Simmons?
Yeah, and that's her, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I always get confused which one's Fitz or which one's Simmons.
Okay.
Because they're the same. They're one. Okay.
They're Fitzsimmons.
I like the bit of moment where she's like, where Simmons goes, Deke, that's your station right here, and he's kind of like, oh, like I have a place in the ship. That's so cool. Like, it was sweet.
It was sweet. So like it was. I mean, there's still a little hard on him with like Mac. It was like, I see where this is going. You're not gonna file any patents here. Stop it. And I'm like, yeah, Mac, but couldn't you just like, I don't know. S.H.I.E.L.D's unlimited like resources has never been explained. Not that it has to, but I mean, money is money. I'll just say that. In that regard. So, moving on to Natalia Cordova as Yo-Yo, who has to sit out this week because of the strike that kind of flew in her. Just subtle touches like her breaking down in tears of joy because she's been clear that she's not going to be infected because of the strike that happened. Like, just that. And then, of course, the big moment with her hands. With her arms. It was a powerful moment for her to say, look, I never wanted this because I don't want to pretend like this didn't happen. I'm not ashamed of it. And you know what? She makes a reasonable argument in that case. Like, yeah, I get you, and I respect you for it. At the same time, it's not going to help blend in with the time periods that we're in. But more importantly, I think you've earned this, Yo-Yo. I think it's time. Come on, like, not only are they better, but even the way that that Simmons put it. When was the last time you felt something with your fingertips? And then, of course, we cut to that scene where she is, and she again just breaks down in tears because, like, wow, like, that's just not something you thought that she'd ever feel again. So, yeah, I love the subtle touches, as well as with Simmons, who is uncharacteristically not her for a lot of this episode, where it's like, not only is she, I think she understands more to where there's a lot more urgency to her to be how she is, but there are moments that indicate how much she's kind of aged. First, the difference is, like, the last time we saw her in real time was, she had the long hair and the bangs. And then, of course, she has, like, just short hair and a bun. And she's really cold. Like, her demeanor is cold and distant. It's not as warm as it used to be. And I'm sure a lot of it is just having to have been separated from Fitz for God knows how many years. Like, that does things to you, I'm sure.
From everyone, actually. It was just her. She tried to figure out everything on her own. And she even says, like, I tried to prepare as much as I could, and who knows what's going to happen. Like you just said, the preview for the second episode, there's, like, ships coming in. And who knows if she was prepared for, like, I mean, I'm sure she was prepared for, like, alien invasion or something like that, but I mean, who knows? And I had a feeling that she's gonna have to, like, stay out of a lot of missions because, again, like, they have her mind. The Chronicoms, they have her mind, so they know exactly what she would do next.
Which is a big reason why we're not going to see Fitz for a while, I think. I know a lot of people are going to be upset about this, that we're not going to see Fitz for a while, because it is the last season, but, like, I don't know if people have noticed, but in recent years, the actor Ian DeCastricker has gotten a lot of, like, really good movie parts, and so, like, how it happened with season 5, in the early parts of filming season 7, he couldn't be there because he was filming a movie. So, as how it was in season 5, he'll have a little bit of a extended absence before they come back to him. But it also just helps with the story because we can't be where he is. We can't know, as Simmons can't know where he is at this moment. So, but we will get him back. But it's just, I know.
I'm actually, like, excited, but also it can be kind of scary because, Fitz, Fitz, he has an evil side to him. And
it's not helped by his injury. His the injury that he suffered when he was in the bottom of the ocean, it's not helped. And when Simmons is not with him, he has a tendency to go off in a bad direction. But and we also don't know who he's with, because there's also other questions at some point I think we're going to answer, like, what happened with Piper and Flint? Where did they go?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions, a lot of people's whereabouts are not exactly known. And since Enoch is with us and not Fitz, so who else is with Fitz? So that's just a question that I think I hope he's not alone, because that's not going to be good.
Yeah.
And speaking of Enoch, talk about, like, this show has continued to surprise me with, like, the additions to the cast and how great they can be, whether it be, like, the additions of, like, Bobby and Hunter or Ghost Rider, or Deke, but of course with Enoch. And this is a character, like, that continues to just be so hilarious. I love when they walk in on him and he's like, I guess he's into music now. I don't know if he, like, in so many of these scenes, he's like, whether he is, like, working on something on the wall panel or he's repairing May, which looked amazing, by the way. He's apparently catching up with the music of planet Earth or something. I don't know. Like out of nowhere, he's just so much into music, which is another layer to that character.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
And it also reminds you, like, yeah, Enoch really. Did Enoch know anybody besides Fitz and Simmons and Deke? I think he met Deke, and I think he met. Did he ever meet? He met May and Cole. Yeah, he met May, Coulson, Simmons, and Daisy. When they were stranded on the shattered Earth.
Yeah.
But he never met. I think Mac and Yo-Yo.
Mm-hmm.
I think is what happened, right? Because Mac and Yo-Yo never left the base.
Yeah.
And by the time they got back, Deke and Enoch were stationed at the Zephyr to activate the monolith to send everybody back home. So, like, Yo-Yo and Mac never met Enoch. And so it was like, it was natural for, like, Yo-Yo to, like, kind of question Enoch, like, well, can we trust him? She doesn't know him. But we know Enoch, and Simmons knows Enoch. Like, well, yeah, he saved my life.
Yeah.
I think several times, in fact. Like, if it wasn't for Enoch, they all would have been dead already.
Yeah, many times.
Like, and many times. Like the prophecy. If he didn't send them off into the future, So
yeah. Wait, the times that Deke and like some of the others met Enoch, wasn't that in the future only?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, in the future.
But Enoch in the future died, so technically they didn't meet. So like they met Enoch, but Enoch.
But not this Enoch. Yeah.
So
See, I forget that. I forget about that because I don't see a distinction. They're the same character for me. But you're right. That Enoch died, and then this is a different.
But then present.
Oh, time travel.
Present day Enoch that hasn't gone to the future.
Oh gosh. That's right. You're right. How did I block that out?
No, dude. I was like, I didn't want to mention it because I was like, oh, it's gonna be confusing once I explain it.
That's right. Yeah. But even then, Yo-Yo and Mac didn't meet that Enoch either.
Yeah,
Enoch.
true.
So it was, so yeah, that was, that's all I got to say. I mean, as far as the dialogue, it's as sharp as ever. Wonderful moments with Daisy fighting off sexism. Mac like threatening people who are about to like yell racial slurs at him. The Chronicoms are fucking creepy. You get to see what they are unmasked for the first time, and then like sticking shit in people's faces and sucking them off.
Yeah,
it's a lot of great stuff that make this, I think, just a classic S.H.I.E.L.D. episode. And then, of course, it ends with, what the fuck is May doing?
Oh,
she looks possessed or something.
That's been like the hardest thing about this whole months passing by. Is like, what the heck is happening with May? Like, she was literally on the ceiling or something, and
I know she was like hanging on, but like if you didn't know that, she almost looked as if she was levitating or something. It was creepy. Like, but I guess that's just May. She does that sometimes. Unless it's gonna be an actual thing where she's possessed or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah.
This episode is it's good setup for what's gonna happen for the rest of the season. It's great to have the team back, as always. I think that's always the same with every single first episode of each season. And I'm excited. There's so much that can happen. And
a lot. And you know what? In more ways than any other season of S.H.I.E.L.D., I would assume the pace is going to go like in every direction, since they've literally got a time machine. And notice how they haven't told us yet how exactly it works. And I think Simmons dropped it maybe in the finale of last year, where she's not entirely sure how that works.
Yeah, no, she mentions it a bit in this episode, but she's still
how the time travel works.
Yeah, from what I got from it, I mean, you can kind of think of it as like how an Endgame was, where like they're going through a bunch of streams through the what's it called, the
gaps in time, I guess you could say.
Yeah, the gaps in time. But the thing is, though, they can't just go in whenever they want. They have to like wait for a specific moment to open up. And
But what I meant to imply is, are we sure they have entire control of when that machine decides to turn on and off? So that's interesting. I'm only just like, I'm throwing that out there because I might have seen some things to suggest otherwise. And that could play into the insanity that could be this season. I know it seems to be a trope now. I don't know if S.H.I.E.L.D. is doing it. I know Endgame did it, and I don't know how many other franchises have done it, but it just seems like when you got nowhere else to go, just do time travel. It always is fun, and I can just tell it's going to be like a really fun season. So yeah, we only got 12 more episodes left.
Yeah. I was gonna say that too. I'm really happy that's 13 episodes actually. As much as I wish they had more, I'm glad that like the episodes are condensed and we would just have a straightforward,
a lot more tight. And I think we said this in a review of season 6 last year, where it was like, well, season 6 wasn't necessarily like our favoriteest season. And again, how you judge seasons is like that's a different ballgame altogether. But as how it was constructed, this is how S.H.I.E.L.D. is at its best. When it's... And again, not that like the quote-unquote filler episodes of the previous 5 seasons like were bad or anything. Some of them were quite good. But when you have a much more like tight narrative, I think it just improves everything. And I think that worked with season... I think season 6 was as long as it needed to be. And I'm sure the same will be said for season 7. Remember how much praise the 4th season got for breaking up its 22 episode into like a 3-act structure where you have pods of 8 episodes.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that it's LMD season, 4th season. It does even those 20 something episodes. It was divided into 3 sections, and each section was like a tight story, right? Like how it's gonna be in this one. So that's what I'm excited
while
for.
Simultaneously building up to a single finale, which is pretty impressive. So. We'll be checking in every single week with S.H.I.E.L.D. recaps. And that's where this show would normally end, but we've got more stuff to do with. So as I mentioned before, the Clone Wars had a finale. David, tell us your thoughts. I'm sure you hated it, right? I'm kidding.
Well, the first few episodes. I haven't talked about those. It'll be quick. I enjoyed Anakin's story with them trying to get 5s. The Bad Batch story arc. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. I actually really liked the Bad Batch team. What were their names? Like,
I don't remember, but they were all good.
Yeah, no, but like not their names, but like their team name. They were named after that one clone that like was defective.
Clone Batch 99.
Yeah, something like that. I thought that was a really nice touch and a good thing for that character. The episodes with Ahsoka, they were fine. It did go on for a bit too long. You could have just done it in like 2 episodes.
Let me just stop you right there. I think you're touching on something that's also important, because some have said that the Clone Wars was. Some have said that perhaps I've implied that the Clone Wars was perfection. No show is perfect, and every show has its faults. And I'm sure, like, we just talked a lot of like good things about S.H.I.E.L.D., but there are a lot of things with S.H.I.E.L.D. that didn't work over the years. Like Dove Cameron, for example, wasn't something that worked all that well. Perhaps some of the costumes aren't as good as they could be. So, like, I mean, and then even with Clone Wars. What you just brought up is kind of important, because Season 7 of the Clone Wars was the best example for the best and worst of the Clone Wars, unfortunately. And we just talked about episode structure with S.H.I.E.L.D. and how they're best at when they're doing these smaller pods of episodes. Conversely, when the Clone Wars in season, I think 4, they changed the format almost entirely. Because before that point, we had at most 2-part, 3-part arcs. Maybe only 1 4-parter, which was season 2, which was the Battle of Geonosis, with Clone Wars. I believe you've seen those episodes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not aware how far you've caught up with the series. I know you've watched it out of order, so I don't know. Like,
yeah, no, I think it was just the last, or not like this season, but second to the last season is the one that I missed.
The show switched up the format in season 4 to do almost exclusively 4-part arc episodes. And for the most part, that worked really well. With stories like Darth Maul and the Umbaran clone, the clones on Umbara with General Krell. It did a lot of wonders for the series, I think. And ultimately why the show is remembered as well as it is. However, long-term Clone Wars fans will remember what it was like when there came a story arc that wasn't necessarily all that, I think, exciting is putting it mildly, that it kind of just was a chore to get through, because you realize, like, if you didn't like the storyline that was picked for the first episode, you were stuck with it for the whole month. So, for example, in season 5, there's a storyline with the droids, with R2-D2 and a whole bunch of droids.
Mm-hmm.
That was frustrating to get through. And of course, George Lucas points it as his favorite group of episodes. And of course, it only exists because George Lucas asked for it. And it's like, oh my God, George, really? You put us through this? Oh my God. Not that they were bad, but it was just like, here's the thing. They would not be bad if there were one episode like standoffs, which is fine. They've done that several times in the show. But like what you mentioned with the Ahsoka arc, there are elements to it that I really love. Mm-hmm. But it didn't need to be that many episodes. I think you could just have done like 2.
Yeah, you could have done 2, and then there were 4 episodes, right?
Yeah.
So you could have done 2 with them, but then the other 2, it could have led to the last 4, you know, because it was just like, you know, you get this side adventure, and then literally like at the last minute, hey, come over here now. It's like, we need you over here. And it's kind of like, like, I get what they were trying to go for, you know, they're trying to tell us like, oh, this is what she's been doing, this is who she is now, and all that, blah, blah. So, and it's just kind of like, it was supposed to kind of solidify her decision of like, this is why I left the Jedi Order and all that. That's how I saw it.
Yeah, and there are scenes that I love, like when they're in the jail cell and Trace and Rafa are telling Ahsoka what happened with their parents. And it gives another layer for why Ahsoka is just so disillusioned with Jedi. But that didn't need to be 4 episodes long. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You think you can make that argument for a lot of story arcs of the Clone Wars. And so like this insistence on doing every single story 4 episodes, I don't think works out all the time. In fact, there are a lot of instances in the show's history where it would have been better service if it was cut back. Because, you know, just pointing, you know, talking about even the Bad Batch, which was fun. Was that really a story that needed to be 4 episodes? Mm-hmm. You know? So it's like, it's frustrating.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, either way though, it was fun. You had some cool scenes and all that, and I
there were good episodes. It just, as you were saying, it overstayed its welcome in some areas.
Yeah,
because it didn't warrant having that many episodes with that particular story, and you do get the feeling that because it's kind of stretched out, some of those episodes didn't need to exist at all. Mm-hmm. And it also just comes at the detriment of other stories, far better material that could have been in this season, but wasn't. I understand that Filoni says that he wanted to have like a Rex-centered storyline and an Ahsoka-centered storyline, and then those two meet up in the finale, because it is about them. They are the main characters. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there were like, I think a handful of other stories that they were working on that could have been taken their place, like the 4-part Son of Dathomir comic that was based off the 4 episodes that were never finished. My preference would be Dark Disciple, which was based off 8 episodes, and it would have had the conclusion of S.H.I.E.L.D. Ventress. And I said this to Alexis, and I said this to Peter. I think the finale of the Clone Wars was perfect. It wrapped up just about everything except for one thing, and that was S.H.I.E.L.D. Ventress.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, the novel is great, and I recommend you do read it, because I think it's necessary for why, like, S.H.I.E.L.D. Ventress' story ties in to why the Jedi fall so well. And I think that also would have helped the moment, particularly that comes in the season with Order 66 much more, and then also with Ahsoka just being so done with them. So it's unfortunate, because I loved Nika Futterman's vocal performance as Ventress. I love that character, especially in the directions that we're going to go with it. So, but the book is great. It is out there. I recommend you do read it. Get an audiobook. It is, to me, an essential storyline for the Clone Wars. It just can't be ignored for how massive it is. Because it says so much about how far the Jedi have fallen and how high Ventress has risen since leaving the Sith. So, yeah. So I think we're in complete agreement when it comes to, like, those first 8 episodes of season 7.
So then, now the last 4 episodes. Ooh, was I? Oh my god, was I excited for it, man! And I played the episode, and you see the titles, and it's in green and all that, and I think you see the Clone Wars logo, and it's in red, and I was like, ooh, they know we're here for this.
Oh, like, yeah,
they're building it up. And then you just see the first battle. You see Obi-Wan badass looking, and then Anakin showing up. He's still doing his show-offy type of thing and all that.
They had movie entrances because this was a movie.
Yeah, basically. And oh my gosh, I was in it right from the beginning. I love the action. I love the characters. And just, I mean, you guys said it in your guys' review on the Fantasy Fair podcast. Like, it was great seeing Ahsoka and Anakin meeting each other. Even though I didn't see the finale or them saying goodbye, like, knowing that she was gone, and like I love that feeling with Anakin, where he's just like, oh my god, it's you. And just like, he really wants to know, like, how she's been doing and all that. It's he is the big brother to her. It was awesome. And then you get to the siege, and when her fight scene, just demolishing the army. Oh my god. And you pointed out too, like, her attacks weren't really like to kill, even though it kind of did lead to killing, but it was awesome.
You know, it's that thing all the heroes do. The Doctor does it sometimes too, where like he inadvertently is the reason people die, although he himself didn't necessarily firsthand kill them. Yeah. But, you know, it's that thing.
Yeah. You know, we all know what I'm talking about. But yeah, just that whole sequence was amazing, and I don't know why this part kind of got me, but when she lands and she turns to Rex and she says, beat you to it. Like, I don't know why, but like the way she said it, it was like she felt like home, almost like she
felt alive.
She felt alive, and she also just enjoyed being in Rex's company, and
yeah.
It was so subtle, but like I feel like it said so much. It was awesome.
One thing that wasn't, I think, mentioned on those episodes in the Fantasy Fair as much as that moment you just brought up is, this is the first time. It's just the perfect culmination of Ahsoka's entire arc through this show, because this is, for the last episodes, this is the first time she is leading an assault like this, a siege like this, with no Anakin, no Obi-Wan. She's on the level to where, like, she is more than ready to take on Mandalorians and Maul, and you just know it. And you never thought that would happen to that little girl you saw in the first few seasons of this show. And you think about, I know, like, some Star Wars fans get like too like they overdo it sometimes when they say this, but like when you think about Ahsoka as a character and all the characters like she's faced off against, Grievous, Ventress, Darth Vader, Darth Maul, Palpatine. She even like had to hold off in the World Between Worlds episode of the Rebels when they were trying to escape that realm. So, in fact, if you think about it, the funny thing is in the events that happen in Twilight of the Apprentice, she goes from like dueling Maul. No, she duels Inquisitors to dueling Maul to dueling Vader and then holding off Palpatine in the span of like a couple of minutes. So, yeah, she has some street cred, I think, as a character and who she's faced off against.
And then, okay, and then what happened next? I know the introduction to Maul. Oh my gosh, yeah. His introduction and like him building up like basic Order 66, telling us that's gonna happen. Dang, that was almost scary because like he knows what's gonna happen and he knows like there's an ending almost, and then that lead up to the fight scene between her and Maul. When I first saw it, I was kind of like, why does this feel so coordinated? Like, not in a bad way. Like, you see coordinated fights and you're kind of like, oh, you're really editing around this or something like that. But with this one, it's kind of like the movement was very fluid, and just well paced. And then finally, Ali tells me that it was motion capture, and I was like, that makes so much sense, and it was awesome. And then leading up to the end of that episode, did you hear some people kind of complain where it was when they were like on top of that rail, like on top of the city, and like like kind of like you know what scene I'm talking about? Right before he gets captured.
I'm aware of that scene. What was the complaint?
Well, it's just like he cut off a piece of the rail, and like it was like leaning down, and Ahsoka was at the end of it, and Maul was like he was the only one with the lightsaber, and like and I was thinking this too. It's like cut the rail, just cut the rail. She falls, but instead he goes.
Except he wasn't trying to kill her. Like he tried every single instance to recruit her. Even when he cut that rail, he gave her one last chance. Please join me. I'm that desperate.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that scene. Okay, hold on. I'll go back to that. But that scene, okay, let me. Okay,
of course, it takes all the time in the world.
Okay, well, the fight scene. No. Look, he didn't cut the rail though. He straight up tried to attack her. That's the thing.
Okay.
And so some people were like, why didn't he just cut the rail instead of like going straight for her? And I mean, like I said, like I thought that too. Like, why didn't he just do this? But when thinking about it, I was like, actually, this whole thing could have gone many different ways. Because if we would have cut it, Ahsoka could have just jumped back to the rail where it was hanging from, and then she would have gotten the high ground. Which
we know how that goes in Star Wars.
That's why I was kind of like, oh, wait a minute. So like when I look back at that episode, I was kind of like, it's kind of intense if you think about it. Like the way I was looking at it, it's pretty cool. Okay, now going back to the first part of the fight, where he was begging her to join him to stop Sidious and all that, and you get that scene where the windows blow over and the flame, or you get like sparks of it flying around them, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's the Last Jedi!"
It literally is the Last Jedi. There's a fucking throne room too. Yes. There's a hand extended out. There's like embers burning everything around them. It's like that was a direct reference to that movie.
Oh my god, and no one complains about it. Nobody brings it up. Like,
it's so obvious what it is, and no one wants to even mention that movie's existence. It seems like, which is an endless frustration of mine, because like, again, as I mentioned, every single person on the Red Spotlight Network is just simultaneously huge fans of both Last Jedi and the Clone Wars, and for whatever reason, that's not the case universally from what I've seen. Weird.
Yeah. And also that cutting back and forth to the Battle of the Clones versus the Mandalorians.
Right.
The fight. I think it was very it was cut together very well. And then, going back again to the ending of that episode, when when he gets captured, and when he's like, "You're all gonna die," and all that. That was intense.
You're all going to burn. We're all going to die, which is, weird because he said that, and it seems like he was right considering how America turned out right now as we speak. Yeah, because parts of the country are literally on fire right now.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, that was also a very intense moment. I loved it. And then
Sam Witwer gave his best performance as Maul in these episodes for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And not that he was like doing a bad job before. Like, whoa,
just everyone
like
was.
the you're right, everyone was, but the terror, the methodic nature of who he is at this moment, and they gave him a lot to work with. Especially the dialogue they wrote for him.
Yeah.
And I love how in the whole like Phantom Apprentice, like not that he's a good guy, he's never a good guy, but like he's kind of trying to tell everyone what's about to happen, and no one cares, still listen, which is an interesting dichotomy, right? When you have like the personification of like the devil reincarnate, which is like the appearance of what Maul is, trying to like tell everyone like, hey, shit's about to like go down. And like when he said this to those clones, you're all gonna burn, you're all gonna die. Well, look at what happened in the end.
Yep.
They all, and even the Mandalorians, they, well, yeah, you know how that went.
Oh yeah. And then so the next episode, I love that sequence where they put him on the ship, and it's like, he's locked up and everything. There's like not a single word of dialogue happening during the whole time, and just the music builds up so intensely. And then Ahsoka and Rex just have that conversation of, it's over. Like, what the heck are we gonna do now? And then everything goes to shit with Order 66. And it is appreciated, but I gotta keep saying this, dude. Kevin Kiner's music anywhere in these episodes, but the eerie coldness of the opening moments of Shattered as they're like going to the Venator Star Cruiser, and they're walking down, and you see those like endless shots of like infinite number of clones, like to where they go to the bridge and they're about to take off into hyperspace. Like that music just felt so cold. No, I'll talk about that song again in a bit, but the Order 66 happens, and the Rex's like face of pain, basically trying to hold back, not wanting to kill Ahsoka. It was again, all 4 episodes were very intense. And then Ahsoka gets a badass scene where she like just blocks every single laser and gets away with it. Again, amazing. And I like that little team up sort of with her and Maul when when she lets him go to just cause chaos around the ship. And he's like, "Are you gonna help me out here?" It's like, wants a lightsaber, and she's like, are you insane? No. It's like, I mean, cause some chaos, but like, I hope you die from this. and then you get a Rogue One reference, basically, where he's just like demolishing all the clones and all that.
Only and again, they don't show it, but it's more graphic than Rogue One was, because Maul cuts these clones to pieces. Like arms, limbs being cut off, decapitations left and right. They're being crushed by the weight of like metal that's falling down. Like that was wow.
Yeah, again, intense. And then once she got the chip out of Rex, it was a good moment, and I love their team up. I think the last episode, I was texting you guys my reactions and everything, and I was like, yeah, Rex and Ahsoka kicking ass and all that. It was awesome. And then, oh man, what else happened to that in that episode? I mean, I guess it was just like one giant ass fight through and through. And then, that scene where she was deciding whether or not, when she was deciding not to kill the clones because they didn't have a choice of what they were doing. And Rick just has that moment of like, they're going to kill you. Like, just forget about them. And like, she takes off the helmet and he's a single tear is dropping on his face. Oh my God. Like, I mean, he practically like saw her grow up, become like an amazing Jedi. And like, he truly believed at this moment right here, she's going to die, possibly. And just wants to protect her. And probably feels bad for even attacking her.
At the same time, his brothers are also just resigned themselves. He doesn't see a way where they're going to have to, like... There's just no way everyone gets out of this unscathed.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it's his brothers that are perpetrating this, for example, that could be the cause of Ahsoka and his end. It's a lot to process.
Yeah.
It's so much to process. It's almost unbearable how... it all just kind of comes back to haunt them, because like, as much as for how people are saying that, you know, these clones are wearing Ahsoka's face on them, and of course they're attacking to kill her, at the same time they're also trying to kill Rex, like his brothers. So it's multifaceted, that's for sure. The just all of what's going on here is, I think, what storytelling is supposed to be anyway.
Yeah. And then you just get the ending. I was gonna say, so before I watched the episode, Alexis Moreno and I, we were listening to a bit of the soundtrack of the season, and she puts the one where the ending, you know, where she buried everyone, all the clones. You know, that song was on, the music was on, and I thought it was the scene where they were locking up Maul in the ship, and I went, wait, which one is it? Is this not the one they lock up Maul? This sounds kind of hopeful. Like, it sounds really nice. And she's like, no, it's just, and she told, and I guessed right away, like, oh my God, this is the ending, isn't it? This is where they all die. Huh?
Is this before or after you've already seen the episode?
Before I saw the episode.
Whoa.
You know? Yeah. So like I could tell like something was off about this music. And then when I saw the ending, you know, she buried everyone. She leaves her lightsaber. Like I was saying with finales of shows, I like it when they kind of end. It's not a complete ending. You just know that there's going to be a next adventure for this character. And this is where I'm kind of like conflicted, because like I get it. It's the Clone Wars. It was always going to end like this. But I still kind of wish it could have like shown something hopeful in the end. Kind of like in Revenge of the Sith, where you see Luke as a baby be given to his aunt and uncle, and you see the twin sunsets and all that. I mean, I don't want that exact ending, obviously, but like what's gonna come. I've
seen that so many times. I mean, yeah, that probably would have, continue.
Yeah, but like that's just my thing. Like I like it when it ends kind of.
Well, you know what? You're not alone in that. I'm sure there are a lot of people that thought that there'd be a little bit more of a like let's say a finale in the vein of how David Tennant went back and saw every companion before he regenerated in the end of time. Something like that is maybe more overtly a farewell, and something that will leave in a hopeful note, as like most Star Wars projects do.
Yeah.
And I also agree, I didn't anticipate the ending, especially for the tone that it captured. So, like, in the immediacy of having experienced that, I understand being a little conflicted, where it's like, that's good, but I was expecting something else. And of course, there's a place and a time to like reconcile that.
Oh yeah,
of course. you know. But I also do think that it's a nice parallel to the ending of Rebels, where that was a very hopeful ending, a very Star Wars hopeful ending. And then with this, it's very dour, kind of just sad. And I think in and of itself, it is such a powerful statement to have. The ending of the Clone Wars series, Darth Vader, which is the creation of, you know, the remaining bits of Anakin Skywalker, holding Ahsoka's lightsaber in front of a downed Republic cruiser with these mass graves of clone troopers who have now been phased out by the Empire. Like the imagery that was there, as far as, and as well as the music and what it meant for the characters and him walking away from that. Like that was the real ending of the Clone War, which was always sad and a tragedy. Although I do think it is fair to criticize from a different perspective, this other aspect where Filoni very much relied on the fact, maybe relied is maybe unkind to put it, but he did say several times that as far as like Anakin and Obi-Wan and all the other characters like Padme, like they have their finale in Revenge of the Sith. And that ending is that ending, and that can't be touched. And this was a side story that was happening in tangent in the same time as Episode 3. And I can very much understand him not wanting to just do beat for beat the same thing as Episode 3, where it ends in the same way. Because I think the way that Filoni described Episode 3 as a companion piece to the Siege of Mandalore is that things that were missing from here you would get in Episode 3, such as that hopeful ending, which happens in most of all of Star Wars. Not that every ending has to be hopeful. I do understand what you're saying, though, about, you know, other things that would, like, Now, I said this, like, I would think that if I were involved with it, I would love a scene where we get to see Ahsoka commune with the ghost of a redeemed Anakin Skywalker. I've always, like, liked the idea of that, following Episode 6 to really, like, tie it up and, like, how like Rebels went the roundabout way to get past Episode 6. But I think there's ample time to do some of that later on, because we know there'll be a lot more ancillary material with these characters per se. And it also isn't the last we're going to see of these characters. We should be very clear about that. That a big reason for why that series is, well, the series that we have spoken of in this podcast that is supposed to be succeeding Rebels with Ahsoka and Rex and Sabine, Ezra and Thrawn is going to be in the style of the Clone Wars animation, like 100% what it looked like here. And I think that tells me that Disney has come to appreciate and has listened to fans that like have spoken that while I do like the Rebels animation in its own right and for what the feel of that show was, to me, I feel that the animation of the Clone Wars is just more aesthetically pleasing to my sensibilities, and I think it's far more cinematic. And I think you saw that in display in these last 4 episodes, and I think it'll service that sequel series really well. And I think that makes so much sense because they didn't just bring back this animation style for just like one season. So I'm hopeful that they really took into account how great, how cinematic this looks. How they're,
No, I remember watching that and I was like, oh my gosh, this almost looks realistic in a way. Like you see texture within these characters. Like you know, when you first see Obi-Wan, like he has dirt on himself, on his clothes and all that. Like you can almost like see the dust on him and everything.
The gray in his side hair beard thing.
Yes.
The Jedi robe, which he hardly wore in the show, but damn, did it look good for when he was on screen. They're just able to do so much more now. And we have to remind ourselves that, you know, a reason why Rebels wasn't in that animation, a large part was because the Clone Wars was much more expensive to make. And George Lucas bankrolled that show basically out of his own pocket. So, which he can't do anymore because he doesn't really own it. So that's a different conversation to have. But yeah, interesting. So where are you now with your feelings of the finale of the Clone Wars? Do you feel like they're much more settled, or are you still a little bit conflicted with it?
I'm still a little bit conflicted because again, I love hopeful endings.
Right.
I love it when they just tell you like there's another adventure.
I mean,
somewhere.
it does leave you cold.
Yeah,
let's
it's
just
very,
be real.
Very cold. You're literally in a snow planet. I mean,
yeah.
And no, but again, at the same time, like I understood
what it was going
for, and I remember, like as soon as I saw the credits, I was like, "Oh, that's it." So
yeah, and in some ways, for it being a finale, correct me if I am wrong here, but when they aired, well, Sam, I shouldn't ask you because you weren't around. Well, maybe you were. Yeah, you were. When Avatar: The Last Airbender aired its series finale, those last 4 episodes, was it all as like one night premiere movie, or was it like week to week? Do you remember how they finished off?
Oh,
because I think it might have been like
a
whole one and done. Like all of them were like on the same night.
I think they separated into 2 nights.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so like I think I could be wrong. Like the first 2 was 1 week, and then the second 2 was another. I could be wrong. I honestly don't remember.
Because I remember watching it, like the whole thing
on
one thing.
I mean, I do remember though being like, "Oh my god, what's gonna happen next?" Like I remember like an anticipation for it, and it wasn't because of like it's the last 4 episodes. I actually didn't even know it was gonna be like a 4-parter. I keep forgetting it's a 4-parter.
I know, me too.
So yeah,
because that was the only 4-parter they ever did, so you wouldn't expect it. So yeah, like I do wonder how this would have been received if they just dropped all 4 episodes at once. Although the conversation wouldn't have been as like active for like weeks on end. Of course, that's why they do it weekly. And I think, I am appreciative for it being a weekly thing. But it is. Have you gone back and watched them all in a row?
Yeah, actually, I did. Before I watched the finale, I watched the first 3 episodes, and then, and like I said, like part of the reason why I'm conflicted, it ends very dire, but it's also very abrupt almost, because like you see all the clones dead, and then you see Anakin, and like you see the bird, which like if you saw Rebels, you know exactly what that is, and then it just cuts to credits, and it's like, oh, okay, we're ending. I thought we had like more. So I think it is just the abrupt ending that kind of really did throw me off. Right.
Which is understandable. Like, I wasn't expecting that at all, and I was thrown off like, what?
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, it also I think shows the growth of Filoni as a writer. For many of these years, he has written a lot of these episodes of Clone Wars and Rebels, and what I love about Filoni is that he's always willing to learn from those around him. If you watch the Disney Gallery show on Disney Plus about the making of The Mandalorian, while, again, I am very critical of that show and a lot of the things that it's doing, I am appreciative of Filoni as a filmmaker and him growing in the footsteps of, big industry people like George Lucas and Jon Favreau and Simon Kinberg and a lot of other people. So it is more like that. And Filoni is said, I think, several times on record. I think he did an interview with, I don't know if it was Good Morning America, it might have been that, after the finale aired on Disney Plus. But that these 4 episodes, as far as how they were written and directed, are very differently than they would have been, let's say, in 2013 when the show was originally canceled. And clearly because there wouldn't have been any like references to Episode 8 or Rogue One or all those other things. So like a lot, I think he's a wonderful student where he takes a lot of other material, not just exclusively Star Wars material, but he takes what works and finds other ways to do it like that, but in a way that's meaningful for character, which I think separates him from like J.J. Abrams, where if you hear and listen to him talk, like, I think he does things almost exclusively for the sake of a moment rather than, and mostly to the detriment of a character moment. Yeah. So, Clone Wars.
No, I mean, I think that's it. It had amazing action. I love the characters, and even though I'm conflicted with the ending, it was still good. It was still a really good ending.
Okay, so Clone Wars. We're gonna go ahead and wrap it up pretty soon. I just want to add one quick thing about Doctor Who. So I went back and I watched. I had previously seen the first 5 episodes of Series 12, up to Fugitive of the Jadoon. And this past weekend, I went back and finished episodes 6 through 10. I'll give my very brief thoughts on Series 12. I think it is a considerable improvement from Season 11 in a lot of areas. And having had the context of the last 5 episodes, I think the biggest success of the series was making me care about Jodie Whittaker and appreciate her performance as the Doctor. I feel like I know this Doctor a lot more now and what she's about, and I see more of the Doctor that I knew in her now because they give you more moments of anxiety and anger and frustration, and you get moments of clashing between her and the companions that you didn't get at all in Series 11. Conversely, you get to have more definition, more dimension, I guess, to these companions that had kind of no dimension in the previous season because of these clashes. And there are episodes where they reflect on their travels with the Doctor and how it's changing them. You get more personality with them. There's a little bit more effort, oomph, I guess you could say, that you see them going out of their way to give them moments. And in most cases, they work a lot. So I think comparing this to Series 11, Jodie Whittaker's performance, this Doctor and the companions, I think is a considerable improvement. Is it where I'd like it to be? Not all the way, but I think it works for the most part. I think also it's given, if anything else, memorable storylines. I think you and I have discussed previously that it felt very much like Chibnall was just like throwing everything at the kitchen sink at the season by bringing back Daleks and Cybermen and the Master and the Time Lords and the Jadoon and this here and that there. So if anything, I guess because they're involved, there are, I think you remember them more, but I will say with the handling of the Cybermen up until the very end, which I didn't like, but for the most part, the Cybermen are handled very well here. There's one lone the lone Cyberman that is teased. His design is exquisite, and the performance is great. I'm disappointed how it ended, but I know with that, but I think it was worth it to see him in those episodes or that lone Cyberman. So that, if anything else, the design was great and the actor was, and the performance was good. This Master, I'm two ways about it. On the performance itself, I think his performance in Spyfall was great, where it's like it borrows a lot from John Sims' madness, but there's just like this visceral, disturbing evil in him that is terrifying. Yeah. And I think he does to a great degree. I think maybe it went a little bit over the top in the finale. Just a little bit. And maybe that's just me because of I didn't understand the motivation to destroy Gallifrey because of the revelation. I don't think was justified to me. So that was another problem there. And then I guess I'm not going to drop this. I am having a little bit of an issue with the fact that I guess we just have to assume that this is the version following Missy. And that would negate the arc that she went through. And while a regeneration resets your personality, it doesn't delete what happened in your previous incarnation. Like Jodie Whittaker's Doctor is the representation of the arc that Peter Capaldi went through. To be kind. Maybe too much of a fault, but it is the representation of what Capaldi's arc was. But that just isn't at all present with the Master. I would have loved to have... I think the opportunity was there for much more nuance, you know? Something to build off of that, and they just chose to ignore that. And I just don't like that decision whatsoever. It to me, it doesn't track. Yeah. And I think you missed something big with that in that regard. The episodes themselves, I will say, I think they're much better written and they're much better directed. The cinematography is beautiful. They look the best this show's ever had. I mean, I don't know whoever they have doing the videography. Whoa, it's great. And I think there are more standout episodes that can summarize this era of Who that are good and good moments for this Doctor and this TARDIS crew. The staging is better. I think a lot of the execution for the most part is better. And yeah. I think what's lacking still to me is whoever this composer is for this season. Now, don't take this as me saying that they should have done exactly what Murray Gold did. But Murray Gold's music to the series, I think, brought it to life in a way that John Williams' score did to Star Wars. Like, the music was a character in this show. And I feel that's substantially lacking completely. And it feels like it's been reduced to like incidental music, how it was in the original incarnation back in the 60s. I don't like that. There are some moments where you do get some great scores, but they're very far and few in between. I think in Series 12, I think there's one great episode. Most of them are pretty good to decent. I don't think there's, well, Orphan 55 was pretty embarrassing. We talked about that episode having it had a good message, but it just fucked it up. It fumbled it. That was the episode where the Earth was, and then we talked about how frustrating that episode was because it just like that was a low point for sure. But other than that, there aren't really any bad episodes. So it seemed as if this season was very reactionary to the reception of Series 11 not having anything memorable or of note. And we talked about how perhaps Chibnall was overindulging or overreacting by bringing literally everything back from like what we know Doctor Who to be. And we have this mystery box with the Timeless Child. And we talked about not being excited about what that would be. I'll tell you what I've noticed as the response. This is basically Doctor Who's version of Last Jedi. This is the single most divisive decision creatively that I've seen in the Doctor Who fan base, maybe since I've been keeping up with Doctor Who. And simultaneously, it also has, I think, it does almost, it's eerie how similar it does. A huge retcon is made from an origin standpoint in the finale. Unfortunately, to my sensibilities, that mirrors the retcon of origin in The Rise of Skywalker. And it does something very identical to what Rise of Skywalker did, where it removes the nuance and it reduces it to a point of it being it's that thing of like trying to make something narratively special, but you make the impact of it less special. So it also, the execution wasn't great because you're left with the impression that this massive revelation is kind of pointless because it shakes the Doctor, but then she shakes it off, and then there's a cliffhanger, and then it's weird because while watching it, I don't think we're given all of the information of the timeless child. And then also, it doesn't seem as if the series is going to use it to build character off of that. And so it has this problem of it being a massive retcon, and I'm struggling to find a reason for it if it's not going to project the characters in different directions. So I'm not angry. I'm not like throwing things like off the thing, but a lot of people are.
Oh yeah.
And however, I think like, oh boy, it's unfortunate because a lot of the episodes in this series were leading to this moment, and and I think it kind of subsequently brings all of them down because it kind of went nowhere. At the same time, though, if somebody else was brought in for like Series 13, and by the way, we should know that this also could be retcon because it just seems like Chibnall is very reactionary. And so if he picks up on the fact that people just hated this, he could very easily, I think, it's left in a state of ambiguity to where you can just bring back an explanation that we all just assumed earlier on, which this could be a split timeline. And I guess, spoilers, that's not what they went for. So I'm very curious to see your thoughts. Because, and it's a shame because I really enjoyed episodes 6, 7, 8, and 9, and 10 is a good episode, but it's brought down by a revelation that is just, you're kind of struggling to find, why was this necessary? What does this add? Why? You know? So, that being said, though, the series, I think, is a marked improvement from the one that came before. And ultimately, there are more episodes that I will remember and like in this series than Series 11. So, I want to make sure, like, I'm not, like, being overly negative, and I don't think I am. I'm not angry.
It just kind of sounds like you're confused. Like, you know that the ending is a big retcon, but you also just kind of like, from what seems you're talking about, it's not going, it may or may not affect the show entirely.
And that's ultimately the problem because, like, okay, mythology, lore, and Doctor Who, retcon it however much you like, because that's happened I don't know how many times. Let's just be real about that. That's not what matters. What matters is the impact on the characters. And how it's presented, I'm having a hard time understanding what was the point.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Does it change anything? It doesn't seem to change anything at all. And it seems to waste the Ruth Doctor, which is a great version of the Doctor. It seems to waste the companions, who we don't know if they're going to come back or not. If this was their closing, I would have liked to have seen just a little bit more of it. If that was the case, I don't know if it is. I think while they do such great work with the Cybermen, they once again kind of waste them because every single time you pair the Cybermen with the Master always just like one-ups them and then uses them as cannon fodder. And I'm like, I don't need every single Cybermen finale to be entwined with the Master. We've literally had that how many times in the last few years? Like, okay, it's fine. And I think what they had with the Cybermen was so good. And then they just, it kind of gets reduced to the same thing we've seen before. So like, there's a lot of good stuff in here. I had a great time watching these episodes. there are some similarity problems with Series 11 with Chris Chibnall. Like, I get that people were critical of like Russell T Davies and what's his name, Stephen Moffat, but I never really had. And there were series where like I wasn't as crazy on. Like, for example, Series 6 is like whatever for me. Mm-hmm. Most of Series 7 is whatever, although there's some good episodes in there somewhere. Mm-hmm. But like, you get the sense that Chris Chibnall doesn't know what to do with this show.
Yeah.
And he's just like, and we don't have to have every showrunner be a visionary.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest waste is that the fact that Jodie Whittaker is the first female incarnation of the Doctor, it should, I think, be driven by a vision, not a placeholder mentality. Mm-hmm. And it seems like it's evident there's just no direct direction or vision for what to do with the first female incarnation of the Doctor. And I feel that's a waste, because you had an opportunity to basically relaunch the series. And I don't think it's succeeding in that regard, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest disappointment there.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, he kind of did have a vision for it with Jodie Whittaker. Like, Series 11, it was just one adventure after another, and like you kind of get like these little lessons of either morality or some history lessons or something like that. And that's not really, to me, I don't think that's what Moffat did when he was showrunner. Like, for him, like, I feel he's kind of like, he sets up a mystery box, but you don't know about what the heck is going to be until like 2 seasons later or the very end. I remember like with Matt Smith, like, they do the whole silence Doctor, silence will fall, and it's just kind of like, what the heck does that mean? And then like, but the thing that he answers though is the question, and I think was that in that season, or was it the end?
Silence will fall. I think it was. It was the end of season 5. I think they revealed it, and then that was the whole thing of season 6, wasn't it?
No, the silence will fall. That was revealed like at the very end of Smith's run. And
silence will no, wasn't it the beginning?
No, it was a reveal in the beginning, like his very first episode. Remember, like you see that little eel-looking alien thing, and he says silence will fall when the question is answered and all that.
Right.
And I think you get what the question is at the end of like that season. I'm not sure. But the silence will fall part, that's like at the very end. On
Trenzalore, you mean?
Yeah. So like, I don't think Moffat really had a clear vision of what he was going to do.
No, probably not.
No.
And maybe also for Chibnall. Because I think the impression I want to add, it's not entirely resolved. It's not clear that this will be brought up again, I would hope, considering how big of a retcon it is. But I do think Chibnall has gone on record saying that Captain Jack will be back in Series 13, and maybe they're going to explore more of that timeless child in Series 13. I would think, anyway.
Okay.
Maybe. But then again, I don't even know when that's happening, because I don't think they even filmed it yet, right?
I doubt it.
So, yeah, we're literally waiting like every 2 years for Doctor Who, it seems like.
Yeah.
Every 2 fucking years. So yeah, there's differences. And not that Moffat or Davies were perfect. There were some things that weren't as great as others, and that there were things that were messy. Like, I think season 5 was the best Moffat-Smith series. And while the other series weren't terrible, Series 6 got very convoluted very quickly. And the finale wasn't necessarily like smooth. It got brought back to basics in Series 7 with the finale of Amy Pond and Rory, and then of course the introduction of Clara. It's tough being, especially with Doctor Who, just being like not only being the showrunner but also being the head writer, which is a different, I think, position. The showrunner is like a Filoni or a Jed Whedon and Marissa Tancharoen or Moffat or whatever. They were in charge for all of the episodes and the overall arc of the characters for where the season is going to take them. But they're not writing every single episode. They're not directing every single episode. There are like Filoni didn't direct any of the last Clone Wars episodes. He wrote all of them, but didn't direct them. But also, that being said, he is supervising director, and he does have authority over the director. So television is an interesting animal, separate from movies, in and of itself. That being said, though, to me, Moffat, I think, captured best about the sense of magic with Doctor Who. And I think he brought it back to basics with Capaldi. And I just don't know what Chibnall is trying to say with Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. I guess is the problem.
Yeah.
Well, I'll wait with bated breath to see what you're going to react to these episodes whenever you watch them. And when you do, we'll come back on here and we'll do it. Any other last thoughts before we close it off?
No. Just keep watching S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes, we're going to be back every week with Beyond the Shield. Real quick, we want to make an announcement to our listeners. As of June 28th, we will no longer be on Wooshka, which was our home for our RSS feed. We have moved over to Castbox. And of course, we've done new feeds, which will then, I believe if you are listening on Apple or Spotify, those feeds have been discontinued, or they will be, and new Spotify and Apple links will be created for the series, our series of episodes going forward. I would advise search up the podcast name on those outlets just to make sure that you have the right feed on it. Wooshka made some last-minute changes that caught us off guard, and so we've been having a difficulty having to literally move our entire library, which goes back 6 seasons worth of material. 6 years, basically, of material at this point. So just so you're aware that you have until June 28th, until we've officially moved away from Wooshka in that regard. And then also for our programming, we've got a lot. We got weekly podcasts talking about coronavirus and the world. Those are some deep, heavy podcasts to get our feelings out there, as well as like some potential movie news. We also have weekly podcasts recapping Avatar: The Last Airbender, and then the movies that made our childhood and our interest in film. To the Table is going to come back with a Tron month, as it were. So there's a lot of programming we're going to throw at you in the next month or so, as we have been. I don't recall there ever being a time where we've done this much for Red Spotlight. So keep an eye out for those episodes. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you, David, for being here. I had a good time, great discussion. I look forward to doing this every single week as a nice balance off to the podcast where it's all doom and gloom. But until then, thank you all for listening. Stay under the spotlight, and until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.